Today's lesson is on distance and midpoint. So this should be a pretty easy review lesson from geometry. So let's get started. The first thing you can see that we have here, I have all 4 quadrants listed for you so that way you can remember. If you tend to forget, remember a coordinate plane starts at the C. So most people start their C's here and work their way around, and that's the order in which the quadrants go. So we have quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4 then. Okay, so the y-axis is the vertical number line. The x-axis is the horizontal number line. The point in the center is called the origin. And I think that's all we need to review for that. So that's everything right there. So let's go over the distance formula. The distance formula is for any 2 points, and it's for us to find the length of a line between those 2 points or the distance between those 2 points. So the distance formula says D equals the square root, and don't forget that, of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 quantity squared. And we simply just substitute the values in. So we're going to do example 1, which is the most basic part where they just give us 2 values and ask us to find the distance between them. So we're going to label our ordered pairs. Remember, each ordered pair has an x and a y. And then we're just going to substitute them into our distance formula. So I'm going to get 3 minus a negative 2 quantity squared plus 4 minus 1 squared, and square root of all that. So this turns into a 3 plus 2, so that is 5 squared, and 5 squared is 25. Plus 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 squared is 9. And then 25 plus 9 is the square root of 34. And you can just leave it in that form. Okay, leave it in radical form. Simplify the radical if possible. We can't simplify the square root of 34 at all. Right? So take a moment, pause the video, try this your turn, and then come back and check your work. All right, so this one we have to remember a couple things about an isosceles triangle. An isosceles triangle has 2 congruent sides. So to determine if 2 of the sides are congruent, we are going to have to find the distance between all of the points. So I'm going to call that one A, this one B, and this one C, just to make it a little bit easier. So for A to B, finding that distance, I need to do 3 minus 1 squared. So I'm doing those 2. And then 2 minus a negative 3, which makes it a plus 3. So I get 2 squared, which is 4. 2 plus 3 is 5 squared, which is 25. And then 4 plus 25 is the square root of 29. And that's AB. Okay, next I'm going to do B to C. So I'm going to do these 2. So again, distance formula, negative 2 minus 3 squared plus 4 minus 2 squared. I get a negative 5 squared, which is still a positive 25. 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So I get the square root of 29, and that is for B to C. So far I have 2 sides the same, but we can't stop here. We do have to do A to C, because if all 3 sides are congruent, then it would be an equilateral triangle. Okay, so we just need to see, hey, is it more specifically equilateral, or is it just an isosceles triangle? So now I'm going to do A to C. So that is going to be negative 2 minus 1 squared plus 4 minus a negative 3 squared. Again, don't forget the square root. I say that every time because that's the thing students mess up the most about this. So I get negative 3 squared, which is positive 9. Then I get 4 plus 3, that's 7. So 7 squared is 49. And then 9 plus 49 is the square root of 58. So what we found was that AB is equal to BC, or we're going to say they're congruent. So therefore, it is an isosceles triangle. So we did show that. So since it says show, we need to make sure that we show all of this work because that is your answer. All right, moving on to example 2. Sort of upping the difficulty just a little bit. It says, given that the distance between 2 points, 3, 5, and 7, y is 4, we have to find y sub 2. So they told me the distance was 4. So I'm going to substitute that in for D, label my ordered pairs. That one already has a y2. And now substitute everything in like normal. So we're going to get 7 minus 3 quantity squared plus y minus 5 quantity squared. And now, if you want to, you can get rid of that square root right away. So the opposite of a square root is squaring both sides. So 4 squared is 16 equals, and then I'm also going to reduce 7 minus 3, so that becomes 4 squared plus my quantity y minus 5 squared. So 4 squared is 16. And now I need to subtract 16 from both sides. So I get 0 equals y minus 5 quantity squared. Now I need to get rid of that squared. So now the opposite of squaring is the square root. And this is where what I'm going to write down is going to look sort of silly, but I need you to remember to do it, especially for the Euro-Torn and other problems. When we take the square root of a number, we get a positive and negative answer. In this case, it looks silly because 0 is neither positive or negative. I'm going to get the same answer. But because it's an example, I want to make sure you understand that when I do that, I will, in the future, get 2 answers because I will have a positive solution and a negative solution. Since it's 0, though, I'm just going to get the same answer, but I wanted to go through the process so you don't forget. Okay? So in this case, we get that y is equal to 5. All right, so again, pause the video, take a moment, try the your turn, and then come back and check your work. All right, so at this point, this is what I was referring to. I'm going to have a 9 equals y minus 2, and then I'm going to have a negative 9 equals y minus 2. So solving both of them, I'm going to add 2 to both sides, but 9 plus 2 is 11. And over here, if I add 2, I'm going to get y is equal to negative 7. Okay, so in this case, you can see that there are 2 values that will make this true, okay? Y can either be positive 11, and that'll still give me a distance of 9, or y can be negative 7, which would still give me a distance of 9. All right, so hopefully that refreshed your memory on distance formula, because now we're going to take a quick look at midpoint formula. So midpoint is just that dot in the middle that is halfway between your lines. So it's going to split your line segment into 2 equal pieces. So again, we have 2 points, and for midpoint, capital M is used because lowercase m is for slope. And I need to add my x values and divide by 2, comma, add my y values and divide by 2, because we are getting an ordered pair. All right, so again, example 3 is the most basic example where we're just substituting values in. So again, make sure you label your ordered pairs, and then all you have to do is substitute them in. So we're going to get negative 5 plus 9 divided by 2, comma negative 3 plus 3 divided by 2. So negative 5 plus 9 is 4 divided by 2 over 0 divided by 2. And then we always reduce our fractions, so my midpoint turns out to be 2, 0. All right, again, we're going to take it just a little bit further because that's way too easy for you guys. And you should have covered this in geometry. So let's see how much you remember. So this one says M is the midpoint. So they're already telling me M is the midpoint. If the coordinates of M and K are 0, 1, and 2, negative 1, respectively, find the coordinates of J. So what that means is since M came first, 0, 1 is M, because that's the ordered pair that is listed first. And since K came second, 2, negative 1 is the coordinates for K. So now they gave me the midpoint. So that's going to go over here on the left-hand side. And that means the ordered pair they give me is just going to be one of the x's and one of the y's. So I'm going to do 2 plus x divided by 2, because that was the x value, comma, negative 1 plus y divided by 2. All right, so at this point, people sort of forget what to do. But I have an x value here, and we're going to set that equal to this x value. Then I'm going to take my y value and set that equal to the y value, and then we can solve our equations. So I'm going to get 0 equals 2 plus x divided by 2. Do green, and then we're going to do 1 equals negative 1 plus y divided by 2. So solving the first equation, multiply both sides by 2, I get 0 equals 2 plus x. Subtract 2 from both sides, I get x is equal to negative 2. For the second one, multiply both sides by 2. That gives me 2 equals negative 1 plus y. Add 1 to both sides, and y is 3. So our final answer, our coordinate, is negative 2, 3. And remember, that's the coordinate of J. That is our end point. All right, so last your turn to do, so give that a try, and then come back and check your work. Right, and hopefully for this last example, you got 3, 2 as the coordinate for your other endpoint. So my only word of caution to you when doing midpoint is to read the question carefully. Read carefully. Did they give me the midpoint and I'm finding one of the endpoints, or did they give me both endpoints and I'm simply finding the midpoint?